Michaelo,
Yes.
that's your name.
Yeah.
Welcome to not beta talks actually anymore. Now we have moved on to the Gamma Quadra, and you
Yes.
are a Gamma. Would
Yeah.
you like to present your type, your full type?
Yes. Well, my full type is double feminine NIFI sleep consume play blast, which is essentially, first of all, double feminine, of course, the modalities. Then NIFI means I'm an INTJ jumper. And then sleep consume play blast would mean that I, as an IJ, am a glass lizard because I have the blast last. So a glass lizard is that type which has the first two functions or just first function single activated due to the fact that it's in the last animal. So because my
Yeah.
NI is in my blast, which is my last animal, that makes me a glass lizard. Uh,
Exactly. Wow, it's a really cool type.
yes, thank
And
you.
I just want to share that you are the exact same type as Farah that I
Yes.
interviewed here
I've
before.
talked to her a bit, but I haven't fully watched her interview that you've done with her.
Hmm. And she's from Canada. And where are you from, by the way?
I'm from Serbia, so and I live in Serbia and I grew up here.
Hmm.
And I live in like central Serbia. I don't really want to say the exact
No, no,
location,
no,
of
you don't
course.
have to.
But
Phone number, no address, no nothing.
yeah,
Just the
of
internet,
course.
right?
Yeah,
Um,
and yeah, but I grew up with American media, so a lot of people will like um, think that I'm not Serbian because I don't think that I sound Serbian. I'm not sure though.
no, I don't think so either.
I don't really have the stereotypical any like Serbian traits. Like I don't, I'm not cultured enough to be considered a stereotypical Serbian person. Serb,
That's
whatever.
interesting. Like cultured enough. If you would give like a short
Yeah.
overview of that, what would that mean?
Well, basically, I grew up with American media, so I was more exposed to American culture rather than Serbian culture because I constantly watched TV, which showed. I was never really interested in like the Serbian channels because I enjoyed watching like American cartoons,
Mm,
like Cartoon Network, Disney Channel, etc. And I watched a lot of YouTube,
right, right.
and I used like Facebook groups in my early days when I was like 10, 11,
Mm,
where I talked online with people in groups, usually in fandoms for shows that I really enjoyed at the time.
mm-hmm.
And we talked always in English. So that's kind of where I learned to make conversation in English. And I learned to understand it through American media. And I learned to speak English through my sister, she is a philologist. She just finished
Mm.
university in philology for, I think that's how you say it in English. It's like the language of science or the science of language. So
Oh, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Interesting because I think philos mean knowledge in
yes,
Greek and logos is the word, right?
yes.
So,
Well, I think it's the opposite.
or philos is even love for a word.
No,
No?
philia is love, and
Yes.
then philos I think means something like something like I'm not really sure. I've never really looked at that per se, but
Philia is actually a
logos is
form
the
of love between friends, I think. Like,
no, I think just philia means attraction or love or anything like that. It's a very generalized term, but logos definitely means study or science. So,
yeah,
um,
cool. Wow. Oh, there are so many things here to unpack, but let's start with your type and
okay,
then
sure,
move on a little bit more to your life if you want
of
to
course.
and your family. So, we're both IJs, and
Yes.
you are, as you said, you are double activated on the OE, so
Mhm.
variety. is more of a human need for
Yes.
you, even though you are an IJ who is supposed to be more in a box, as they say.
Yes.
So if we compare and contrast me and you, I have the double activated OI, so I'm more
Yeah.
of a typical IJ.
Mm-hmm.
So you have consumed really high as savior, and
Yeah.
I'm thinking of like in terms of knowing your own type as you were exploring what type you were. This must have been harder for you having OE so high up and
Oh,
being an
actually,
IJ.
no. I'm not really sure about whether it was harder for me, but I definitely know that it was like the thing that I relate to uh, my type when it comes to like how I learned about myself and stuff is that I definitely never really none of this type stuff really hit me like it does hit somebody else. Um, like people always say like, oh, I realized I'm not the type I was, so I'm gonna have an existential crisis. I never really had that. I never really was upset by changing my type or updating it
Mhm.
or like finding out stuff about myself. All of that stuff came really naturally to me,
Yeah.
and it was very fun. It was never anything that felt like a chore. It was never anything that was like stressful to think about myself and to think about my type. It was always like I love having OPS constantly in my mind because it gives me something to think about, like to explore with my mind, I guess. And
Mm.
honestly, I could say I definitely do like the fact that I got officially typed, but I
Mhm.
only slightly regret it because now I can't think about what type I am anymore. I can't
Oh.
really like wonder anymore, which is a mild inconvenience, but it's way overshadowed by the fact that I have certainty now, which is
Right. Yeah, because
definitely better.
you then you kind of enjoy doing that puzzling and
Yes,
sleep processing who you
yes.
were and your specific functions.
Mhm.
Tell us more about how did you get into typology?
Yes. Well, first I got into it. I'm not really sure the age, of course. I can't really remember like the times, but whatever. I got into it at first by my sister recommending 16 personalities to me,
Mm.
as do most people start with that. So I started off and I got INFP on the test. And I didn't really think much of it because I don't think I was even able to read English well enough to like read the descriptions back then. And
Mm.
there weren't Serbian descriptions for the types yet. So I just got that type and I asked like, oh, what does this mean? And she was like giving me some explanation and I didn't understand anything. So I was like, okay, whatever. And then like a year later, or maybe 2 years later, um, I got I found the test again randomly on like Facebook, and I did it, and I got INTP, and
Ooh.
then I read it. I was able to read it because there was um, I was just able to read it. I can't remember if it was because there was a Serbian description or because I knew English better. Doesn't matter, but I could read it much better this time and I related to it like very intensely and it immediately struck like a core
Mm.
nerve in me, I guess. Like um and it immediately got me hooked. And the first thing I did was like just look at videos, just read about it, join groups about it, and ask my sister a lot, discuss stuff. And then eventually I got into cognitive functions, which I absolutely adored when I first found out about them because
Mm.
it was so complicated and there was always something else to learn. And it was great because I could apply it pretty much everywhere. And it gave me like a little system to think about all the time. It gave me like a little thing to like whenever I'm bored or whatever or stressed or like waiting for something, I
Mm.
always just go back to that for like some kind of entertainment or certainty or something like that that I can process. And then later, I eventually got into OPS like 3 or 4 years ago. Not exactly sure when, but I got into it when it was still Dave's Superpowers and when they still used the like little colored bubbles that was kind of what hooked me onto it. Like when I saw how visually it looked, like it made sense to me that they would present them this way. And
Mm.
that's what got me hooked at first because it just looked cool. And then
Oh.
later I found out, oh wait, this actually makes so much more sense and it works a little bit better than most other systems that I've come across so far. And then recently, like a year ago, I started getting a little bit more into Enneagram as well,
Mm.
although I don't take that nearly as seriously as OPS yet, but that's also another thing that I'm interested in. So yeah, I
Mm.
think that's about it for my journey as well.
Interesting.
And yeah, of course,
Wow.
I got officially typed in, can't remember if it was August or September.
Yeah, I think,
It was August 1st that I got my type back officially.
yeah, right. Yeah. Because I think it was cool that you reached out to me after
Yeah,
seeing that Farah, your twin type, was
I
interviewed
did
here.
not expect in the slightest that you would be like wanting me to do an interview. I just said it like thinking uh nothing of it basically. I just said it like wanting to let her know essentially that there is another person in the community with her type. But then it
Right.
turned into like actually talking to her for a little bit
Mhm.
and now doing this interview. So that's cool. I'm really
Yeah.
glad that I did that.
Yeah. Yeah. To explore that tangent a little bit more, I can just tell the viewers that this is a possibility. If you want to reach out for an interview, you can do that, like Moth. And also, I had this NITI girl here before who
Ooh,
also, Jasmine, who also reached out and wanted to be interviewed, or at least we started by talking and then I asked for an interview.
that name sounds really familiar to me and I
Mhm.
remember that. I'm gonna have
Yeah,
to look at who she is
she's
later.
a sleep blast play, so more extroverted,
Hmm.
but yeah, an IJ and also a jumper. So she's
Yeah,
very cool.
interesting.
So yeah, it's a great thing to do, like reaching out to me, and I can connect you to people in the community with your, possibly with your exact same type. If you
Yes.
want to get interviewed, I'm open for that too.
If
So
there's
thank you.
anyone who's officially typed as the same type as me, please reach out. Like I can like post my Discord handle or something in the comments or something whenever
Yeah, yeah,
somebody wants to reach out.
yeah.
So
We can share whatever you want to share in the
yeah,
description below.
yes.
Okay, so just to comment a little bit on how you explained your journey into OP and into typology, it was very, it's a very good example of consume, because you were taking us along step by step,
Yes.
everything you did. And interestingly enough, also, you didn't really recall the exact time period, like the years and so forth, which also points toward feminine sensory. So yeah, it's just interesting to talk to you and actually see how your functions are playing out right here.
Yes.
And I'm doing the blast now, so I'm a
Just
blaster.
blasting back what you
Yeah,
read in me,
exactly.
essentially.
And sharing it with the tribe, so that
Yes.
maybe it's even clearer. Yeah. So I was thinking of what you said, that you were not really upset about receiving your type. And that's so interesting as we compare our IJ types
Mhm.
to me, because I'm double activated OI. And to me, I experienced it the, quite differently, like the
Oh
opposite way.
yeah,
I
I
had to
can
kind of go
imagine.
underground for 8 months before I reached out to anyone just to process, because as I told you before the interview, I felt so chaotic and I thought I was possibly NE at the top. So just, receiving this INFJ type being NI first was a shock to me. I could
Yeah.
not see that at all. I could accept the FE. The FE was pretty easy to see once I got it pointed out. But yeah, the NI was a struggle for me to understand.
What was
So
the exact type that you thought you were before you got OP typed?
didn't really have an exact type, but I was typed by an MBTI practitioner at my work, and he told me I was an ENFP,
Hmm.
and it was a very extensive test. I was doing this test for hours and hours. So I actually thought that, yeah, that was true. I didn't really question it. And also, I did some of these online tests and I got the same results. So,
Hmm.
yeah, so I didn't even think of another type, like just some variant like NETE or NEFI or something.
Yeah,
That's where my mind went. So,
interesting.
yeah,
I
it's
thought it
interesting.
was an ISTP jumper for the time just before I got officially typed. Uh, Even cognitive resolution group typed me as like MX. So like they typed me as masculine sensory plus
Oh,
not sure of whether I was masculine DE or feminine DE. And
mm,
then TINI, sleep, consume, blast, play, which was, it made perfect sense except for the modalities to me, because
mm,
I was like very sure that I was feminine sensory, because like pretty much everything points in the direction of me being feminine sensory, other than kind of like my stature, I guess, plus the fact that I look down when I think, even though there's like exceptions to that rule always.
mm,
And I noticed that uh, it's definitely like a pattern with me that I have like the worst memory in sensory, in the sensory way of literally anyone I know.
mm.
Like nobody has as bad of a memory as me, essentially, and tracks time as little as me.
Right.
Um,
Mm,
but yeah, I don't know. I'm not really sure exactly what made them think masculine sensory, but I think everything else definitely made sense though
yeah.
at the time. But now this type that I have officially makes a little bit more sense, definitely. Like,
Yeah, because
and
the big thing there was that you are not a decider, you're an observer,
yes,
and that's
definitely.
kind of a huge coin.
Yes, it is. But in
Um,
my case, it's because I'm a glass lizard that I thought I was an IP, because I have so much, like I talk a lot about my decider struggles in my everyday life. And I talk about like how how it sucks to be so DI, I guess.
mm,
And yeah, I just look like an IP a lot, but Dave actually answered my email when I asked him about it.
mm,
Like I said something like, "Hey, could you elaborate on me being an observer, because everybody thinks I'm a decider."
mm,
And he said like that it's because I'm not stuck on the deciding part of my personality. I'm not stuck on like the deciding problems. I can talk openly about my IP issues, or rather now it's DI issues just.
mm,
I can talk openly about like how I don't like specific people, and I can like name drop people.
mm.
He didn't say that specifically, but I kind of like,
Read between the lines,
yeah,
right?
essentially.
Yeah.
I just kind of built upon what he said about my type a little
Mm,
bit.
yeah.
And he did say that I do definitely like rely on people to help me with the observer stuff. So
Mm,
like I used the double deciding as a way to manage the single observing, which was even visible in my email. I was like saying essentially, hey, can you help me with this observer issue? It's okay if you don't, which
all
was like,
right. So you did both the single observing and the double
yeah,
deciding in
yeah,
that
exactly.
sentence. That's so cool.
Exactly. And like the first two sentences, it should have been obvious to me. Uh,
Mm,
like it probably would have been obvious if I was somebody else I was talking to who said that to me.
mm.
But to me, it just wasn't from my personal point of view.
No, exactly.
It's-
Yeah, because we are in ourselves, so we
yeah.
don't really look at our sentences or what we're saying or doing like from that perspective.
Yes,
Yeah. But as you start typing other people, I don't know if you've tried that.
I have
Um,
definitely.
yeah, then you get slowly you get more and more aware of your own functions. And as David Shan usually says, also, we can use ourselves in typing. So the better we know our own types and the more we understand and see our own functions, we can kind of spot the opposite functions in other people or similar functions and so forth.
I
So,
think that's like one of my most dominant instincts is that I immediately compare everyone I meet with myself and my own type.
yeah.
Like, is
Which
this
makes a lot of
person?
sense because you have both
Yeah.
the NI and the FI. So the
Yes.
NI is
And
tracked.
plus I'm like a double decider with DI, so I'm like going back and
Yeah.
forth between people and myself, I
Uh-huh.
guess, to
Yeah.
help
And
with my observations.
yeah, exactly. You're going back and forth between them and you. And then also the NI is tracking your patterns. So you are comparing your patterns to theirs.
Yes.
Yeah. This is really, really interesting. So you were pretty okay with your type within how long? Like days
Literally,
or
as soon as
months?
I got it, I was like
Wow.
immediately like, oh yeah, this makes sense, definitely.
Yeah.
And I could like immediately update it, my type. And I think that's kind of related to feminine OE plus savior consume, and plus like double activated OE, because like I can pretty easily update and like take in new information and like uh, not necessarily change the way that I think, not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily change like my behavior or like my opinions or stuff like that, because I think my sleep is double masculine after all. So like my opinions and my inner world is a little bit the same, but the way that I present and the way that I like um and the like the ST of my type, like just a little I consider those small differences between my original type and the type that I got now little differences because
Mm.
it's barely any difference. Like I thought that I
Yeah.
was TI, but I turned out to be FI. I thought that I was a decider, but I turned out to be an observer, and I didn't know whether I was blast last or play last. So,
Right. So if
which were
we
all pretty minor differences.
exactly, yeah. Yeah. So if we study or if you want to share a little bit about your observer issues, because
Mhm.
observers, they are constantly um what can you say, we are obsessed about our path.
Yes,
We
definitely.
are feeling stuck sometimes, quite
Yeah.
often, and we're not really stuck with people issues. We do have them because everyone has them, but we can go back and forth between, you know, seeing their faults and our own faults and regulating ourselves in that way, kind
Yeah.
of babysitting our own emotions in
Yes.
regards to people. But when it comes to pathways and such, it's so much harder.
I definitely don't really look like a stereotypical observer when it comes to everyday life because I don't freak out about things and conspiracy theories and stuff like that. Of
Hmm.
course, I'm just saying that, and I probably do like subconsciously, and it's probably visible to others except for to me. Uh, so, but I guess I'm kind of like in my house, I'm like the least I'm like the most patient person when it comes to like technology or like um like when something doesn't fully work how it should in like our everyday life and stuff like that. I'm like the least because I live with two IJs, my mom and my sister and my dad who is an IP, but he's like double masculine sleep lead, so double masculine plus sleep lead, not double masculine sleep lead. So he's generally going to be a little less patient than me, even though we are pretty similar in type. But yeah, I'm seen as kind of the most patient one when it comes to stuff, but kind of ironically the least patient one when it comes to people. Like I have
Hmm.
the least patience when somebody is making noise or like when somebody is like taking away my time or something like that, uh,
Right.
etc. I just kind of feel like I'm a little bit less patient when it comes to people, even though like it's only in my house that this happens, really.
Mm-hmm.
Like it feels like in my house, my type is a little bit upside down because of the people that I live with,
Mm-hmm.
having their types compared to mine. It's a little bit like it stands out a little bit more in certain areas than when I compare it to like how my type is at school, because in school my type is pretty obvious. Um, I do definitely have a little bit more observer issues, and I'm definitely much more of a double decider.
Mm-hmm.
Stereotypically,
When you
like
say
among my,
observer issues in at school, like can you give some examples, some SE?
like for example, for SE example,
Yeah.
I have, um, I can't really pay attention very well. Like I have a very short attention span,
Mm-hmm.
not because I don't find something interesting or like because my brain goes to something else, but because I just get tired easily from uh, paying attention for very long. And because my brain, I think of it as like my brain is like constantly pulling me back in, because my double masculine sleep is always domineering and looking for something else to think about that's more interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like whenever I uh, think about like what's on the board when I'm trying to pay attention in school. I look at something and it reminds me of like something that's within my box. And then I zone out thinking about that thing that's in my box. And then
Mm-hmm.
it leads me to just thinking like about my interests at the time. And
Yeah.
I end up not paying attention. And I often end up zoning out like for 90% of the school day. Like
Yeah.
people always see me and I'm like looking at one point in space, just nothing in particular. And uh, I look like I'm planning something, but it's just I don't know, I'm just thinking about something else. And
Yeah. That's the intuition and the OI
yeah, I
taking
think
us
it's also
back.
related to like masculine intuition, like pulling me physically into the mental visual world,
Yeah.
so that like my it's almost like my brain, this masculine NI, it pushes me into this one image, and then it makes me essentially blind to what's happening outside of me, which is very prominent in my life. I'm very oblivious to what's happening around me a lot of the
Mm.
time. Like I miss buses when I'm at the station. I miss, like, I don't see when people are waving to me in public.
Yeah.
Like, um, just like generally oblivious, uh,
Right.
because
Yeah.
I'm like constantly thinking about something else, I guess. And it's always like the one of like three things that are on my mind, which is like zoology, then like world building, and then OPS, or just
Right.
technology in general. So
Mm-hmm.
those are like
Yeah.
the three things that I have it narrowed down, of course. Like how couldn't I have it narrowed down?
Yeah. But still, yeah, it's interesting because sleep over consume does that. Like it's interesting seeing you have that same issue as I have also, because I have my sleep second and my consume fourth. But
Mhm.
with you, even having consume second, like very high up, you still have that same issue. Like as you are taking in, you are still being pulled back into your sleep.
Yes.
And I feel that very strongly. And I think maybe in your case, you're able to take in more, maybe before you get pulled in. I don't know. Um,
I think that if something even has a remote chance of fitting into my box of interests,
mhm,
I get like uh, essentially, I become like better at paying attention and taking it in than anybody around me.
yeah,
If
yeah.
it even happens to be even slightly related to like animals or
Mhm,
typology, I can listen and talk and do all of my demons and just completely disregard what type I am essentially, by doing literally any function necessary just because it happens to fit in my box. Like I
Yeah.
can push myself to uh, disregard and just completely forget about my demon state if it means that it's going to be in my box. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I can relate to that too. Like if your saviors are on board, it's so much easier to do
yeah,
your
definitely.
demons. Yeah. I don't know if you can relate to this, but I have started to listen, for example, to podcasts or videos or audiobooks like on a higher speed,
Mhm.
because the thing is, as you say, I lose focus, I go back into my sleep. So to avoid that, I'm speeding up the consume so that I
Yes.
can't think as fast.
Yes. Oh
Have you
my
tried
gosh.
that?
I definitely used to do that a lot when I was a kid.
Mm,
I definitely, when I was little, I think I had like an extremely fast brain compared to a lot of other people. Like I
mm,
needed to consume everything. Like I put every single video on YouTube that I watched in double speed,
mm.
except for music, of course.
Yeah, of course.
But uh, and I didn't even see it as particularly fast. I even wanted it to go faster sometimes, but
Yeah.
YouTube only goes up to 2 times speed,
Mm,
unfortunately. And I don't do that at all anymore somehow. Like I changed a lot into becoming more slow and careful when it comes to taking in information, because I think it's mostly that I lost a lot of my interest in everything. And I've only like narrowed down my interest into those specific 3 things that I'm interested in.
mm,
And it's like I used to find absolutely everything interesting.
mm.
Like I could think about politics even and find it interesting. And now I can't even think about politics because of
Yeah.
how boring it is. So yeah, now it's just like, but the stuff that I do have the ability to listen to now, it's kind of remained the same way that I have to listen to it on fast speed so that I can like keep taking it in and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's so interesting. And I see a pattern there within myself that kind of matches yours, in the sense that I actually also was very interested in a lot of things, like almost everything. That's how I felt
Mhm.
when I was younger. But the older I got, the more I narrowed in on my topics, my
Yeah,
special interests. And yeah, so I wonder if that's somehow connected to being young and just eager to learn, about life
yeah,
and everything. And then you
definitely.
become more of your, you know,
Yeah,
self or,
I
yeah.
personally don't think that it's exactly type related. So yeah, I think you're definitely right that it's it could be type related, I guess. But for me and for other people that I've seen, I think it's pretty evenly distributed among types. So
Mm,
it's probably like a youth related thing.
yeah. Yeah, let's talk a little bit more. We have talked about your sleep and your consume. So you're very self-aware, um,
Hmm.
even for your young age. And you are taking us along when you're giving us the consume stories. And then we have the play and the blast, the animals that are your demons. And how do you reach those? You were talking about when you have your saviors on board, then you
Hmm.
activate them easily. Do you have any other examples of when you are
Yeah.
using your play and blast?
I can use my play and blast, especially my play, whenever I'm around a person that's in my FI box, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
So I can do anything for the people that are in my box, essentially. I think Farah also talked about this a little bit,
Yeah,
how the people that are close to her are so special to her
yeah,
and how she would take a bullet for them or something. Just not, she didn't say that probably, but I'm just like saying it, paraphrasing it, whatever.
yeah, the
But
idea. Mm-hmm.
yeah, and I definitely relate to that. I have a lot of like extreme need for closeness with people, and whenever I'm very close to somebody, it's like I feel an extreme sort of connection with them, and I feel extreme ease around them
Mm.
usually. And I just feel like I can essentially play and blast all I want around them.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Uh,
especially the play, it feels
mm.
a little bit, it feels like play is like the most embarrassing animal for me to use. Like when I'm working a lot, or when I'm like messing around, or doing the back and forth with people.
Mm.
But like when it's in my box, or when the person is in my box, then I can definitely. Uh, so essentially, when it's NI or when it's FI, I
Yeah.
can uh, I can play a little bit better than usual.
Yeah. So it's still using your saviors to kind
Essentially,
of, yeah, reach them.
leverage.
Um, and you have ST play. So my
Yes.
play is SF play. So
Yes.
that's different. How does it manifest? Like ST is a lot about
Mhm.
block banging.
Yes.
I mean, the great example would be Dave and Shan finding out more about the OP code, like discovering it and
I'm
doing the
sorry, you
ST.
cut out a little bit. Can you repeat that?
Oh, okay.
A great example would be who?
Yeah, Dave and Shan, as they
Yeah.
were discovering the OP code, they were doing a lot of
Mhm.
this ST play,
Mhm.
puzzling. And how would you say that your ST play plays out, so to speak? How do you see it?
Well, I definitely, uh, I can like say, I don't, I feel like I have a lot less play than I do blast somehow, uh, even though blast is my last animal, but I think it still makes sense that I'm blast last because I'm so like annoyingly energy oriented. Uh, but yeah, my play, ST play, essentially, I don't like do the hustle culture stuff. If I had to like, and I uh, overview it,
Mm.
overview the hell out of it, I don't, I definitely don't like get up, work 7 hours a day, and then not think about my emotions or something like that. And I definitely don't like, even when I'm working together with people for like a project, when we're building stuff, or when we're like doing a project, I can't help but zone out. I can't help but um, take care of the vibe rather than the problem. I can't help but like do a little bit of self-entertainment, self-amusement rather. And um, but ST play generally doesn't manifest a lot in me, in the fact that I struggle with like working, I guess, like doing the thing a lot.
Mm.
Uh, I struggle with like, uh, I guess, I don't know, just a random example, doing my homework, for example,
Mm.
um, because it takes a lot of energy to like do that back and forth with the world of like, okay, I gotta look at the sensory now, and then I have to figure out a solution, and very quickly, like doing that for a very long amount of time, it takes a lot of effort for me. I can certainly get in the zone sometimes, of
Mm.
course, especially when, again, it's in my boxes. Uh, like if I do homework that's even mildly related to zoology or something like that for biology, I can very easily just do that for hours, and it'll be very easy. But yeah, for ST play generally, I'm a very not productive person. I'm very like, I get up and it takes me at least like 2 or 3 hours to get ready for the day, because in the morning, like I usually, I'm a very neither a night person nor a morning person. I'm like a midday person,
Right. Yeah.
because in the morning I can't think because I'm tired and I need to like prepare myself, and I'm really not physically ready yet. And
Mm.
in the evening I can't think because I've already drained myself. So I'm like a very midday person. I don't know if that's like related to my type in the slightest, but I just happened to notice that at around like 3 or 4 p.m. is when, or like around now is when I'm kind of like, it's 3:25 for context, is when I'm very productive compared to the usual. So.
Okay.
And I don't know, I think I kind of went off topic there.
Yeah,
Um,
working with others was
yes.
basically the
Oh
question.
yeah. Mhm.
But you find it hard to get started.
Mhm.
So you said that you see two things I was thinking of. You said that you are annoyingly energy dumb, something like
Yes,
that.
definitely.
And the other thing you said, so that I don't forget it, was that you can see your blast more than your play. So
Yes.
those things I'd like to
Yes.
address before we
Okay.
wrap this
Well,
thing up.
first of all, just the energy-oriented part is a little bit obvious
Mhm.
because I tend to be a very not serious person when I'm just in casual conversation. I tend to like take a while to get stuff done, and like I focus more on whether I am properly like entertained, or whether it's just right and just perfect uh, as a vibe or as a mood, so that I can get started even, or especially finish any kind of work, uh, which can be a little bit annoying when you're working with me and it takes like uh, it takes hours for me to get a product finished and like output, which is a little bit related to like blast last, and just pretty much every part of my personality type is related to the fact that I struggle with like getting the output and like the um I think I said the word before. It's um uh like what is the word that's associated with blast? Like product
Producing.
producing, yeah,
Mhm.
basically. Uh definitely struggle with that. And I tried like a lot of things to fix that as well. Like just trying to like get like a habit of doing a little bit of producing a day just to like ease into it a little bit, or like to try and incorporate something I love into it, or just like pushing through and disregarding my emotions and just like pushing myself through it, just brute forcing the blast, which is not very fun, I admit, but it sometimes gets the job done when I need it to. But
Mm.
yeah, anyway, I was gonna say I'm very energy oriented because pretty much constantly I am worried about uh, like whether I have a lot of energy, and I'm constantly thinking about like how can I preserve and expend at the perfect times and the
Mm.
perfect strategically like planned out ways, so
Mm.
that I can never end up having either too much energy or too little energy, and I end up like spending my entire day like just doing a little bit of everything, like
Yeah.
eating a little bit of food so that I can restore myself, doing a little bit of work so that I can waste a little bit of energy. I
Mm.
said a little bit, quite a lot, but
Yeah,
uh,
right.
you get what I mean. Like I'm
Yeah, I
just
totally
very,
get what you mean, because it's that back and forth between sleep and play that we're doing all
yes,
the time, like
definitely.
just a bit of everything, not going all
Mhm.
in on the sleep or all in on the
Yes,
play fully,
definitely.
even though you will be going in more on the sleep than the
Definitely,
play.
yes.
Yeah, but still the back and forth. While the consume and blast, like the info DOMs, they are going between the info coin, between the
Yes.
two output and the input side of that coin,
I
and they will
wondered how
go all
that would
in.
work though, all the
Yeah,
time. Like I wonder how info people, what do they like manage all the time? Like just as you said, output and input, I
yeah,
guess.
yeah. So
Which makes
that
total
they
sense now that I think about it. I definitely don't do that. I
yeah,
don't manage the input and output end of it. I always
exactly.
like lean all the way into input
Hmm.
and not at all into output,
Yeah,
which is interesting. What about you?
yeah. I'd say yeah, the opposite then. So I lean more on the output, which is draining in a sense, because
Yes.
yeah, I also want to take in. I have double masculine consume, so there is
Yeah.
this kind of also force, even though it's like deep down in my stack that I want to, I aspire to, but it's like I don't have the permission to do that right away. Like I'm more obligated
Yeah.
to the output.
And the other thing that I mentioned was seeing blast in myself more than play. I think it's mainly related type-wise, like function-wise, to the fact that I have the NINTE technically at the top, even though they aren't my saviors, because I'm an I'm an INTJ, so it's still,
Yeah, it's still
as they
there.
said plenty of times, the stack does seem to have a little bit of influence, but um, it definitely makes more sense that I'm blast less than play less, even though it's like pretty visible that I can blast sometimes.
When you say that you can, sorry for interrupting, but when you say that you can blast, can you give some examples of what does that look like?
Yes, well, I can do the producing and the output, of course, and I do it often. Like when I am making, I have like 8 giant Google Docs that have world building notes that are very neatly organized into like categories and very well organized so that people can read them and understand them easily. And uh, I spent a lot of time on those, and I sort of, people when they see those, they're like, oh, you got to be some kind of blaster if you've like uh, organized your information into like these uh, categorized like um, documents, I guess. I don't know. But I think it's definitely, again, we keep going back to this, but it's because it's in my box again.
Yeah.
World building and like writing and fantasy stuff is all in my box. So I can blast as much as I want with it, essentially. So that's still kind
So
of where I am good with blast, but also in general, like uh, I'm not really a non-talkative person. Like I definitely talk a lot less than people uh, around me, but when you're talking to me one-on-one, like we are now, for example, I don't leave you hanging in the sense that I take huge breaks in between my sentences uh, or at least I don't think I do that.
no, you
But
don't. Yeah.
and yeah, I do definitely think that Blast isn't as intensely non-existent as it would be for someone who is like consume sleep play Blast, which I know a lot of. So
Interesting. So going back to what you said, organizing this
yes.
kind of meticulously, this information that you have, would you
Mhm.
say that you primarily organize it for yourself or for the tribe? Like, is it first for the tribe and then secondary for you? Or is it more, I'm doing it for me, but now I can share it once I've done it?
I can say that it absolutely started with it being just for me until people hopped onto the ride and said like, oh, this is cool. Can you do more of this?
Mm,
And then it just kind of powered my ability to do it even more. And now I do it fairly often.
yeah.
And like, I share my writing often and I share my character designs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it definitely did start out as just like a way for me to put all the sensory in one place so that I can't forget it and so that
Mm-hmm.
I can like have it organized, of course.
Mm,
Uh, because world building is it's very taxing on your memory. It takes a lot of effort to remember absolutely all of the details of your world that you're making because you're
mm,
literally making a whole world, of course, with like history and culture and language and stuff like that. So of course you'd want to put all of the stuff in one place. And that's what I did end up doing at first. And then when people saw that when I first shared it and they were like thinking that it was cool, that's when it kind of like powered me to start doing it for other people as well, much more. And
yeah.
now it's like basically my primary instinct when I'm making those. It's like uh the main thing that I think about when I'm writing is this going to be clear for people,
Mm,
ironically? And is it going to be interesting enough? Is it going to be valuable to people? Is it going to make sense? Just like
right.
trying to
Mm,
get all of the possible like letter combinations, the NT,
interesting.
NF,
Yeah,
SF, SF, ST. I said SF twice.
that's yeah. So that's something you've learned and developed, and you're progressing like more towards orientating that organization towards the tribe, not just for self.
Yes.
So yeah, that's really cool that you're doing that. And for me, it's quite the opposite. So what I'm doing right now, I'm producing these videos.
Mhm.
I'm exploring the OP code and the functions and all of that. And what I do then is that I go back and I rewatch my own interviews and kind of reconsume them. And so what I first did was to organize for the tribe. And then I go back and I kind of learn from it like afterwards, while you are learning first and then you're teaching, you know? So
Mhm.
that's how you see the blast over sleep in me and the sleep over blast
Yeah.
in you. So it's quite the opposite way of doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I need to get started. I need to just get involved with the tribe and, kind of teach them and teach myself as I am teaching them,
Yeah.
sort of. So
Mhm.
it's quite different. But I like what you're saying, that you are considering the tribe's perspective more and more. And wow, that's such a power, because then you are, first of all, really knowledgeable since you did it for self at first. And then you have something to really share. So
Yeah.
that's cool. Any other insights you have discovered since you got back your type? Like, oh, I actually do this, but I never thought of it before. Something
Well,
like
basically, double deciding is like the biggest coin that I've kind of thought about in myself lately,
that. Mm,
and I've definitely noticed that uh, I am pretty much like actually in reality one of the most patient people that I know when it comes to like uh, people who make mistakes when it's like not on purpose. And I definitely uh, have seen like comparing to my friends who are like, oh, you forgot my birthday party. I hate you now forever. And it's
mm.
like, wow,
You can't even relate.
yeah, doesn't
Yeah.
even cross my mind that I would be
Mm,
mad at somebody for forgetting my birthday,
yeah.
especially not staying mad at them forever.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's kind of
Yeah.
that's just an example. Of course, there are plenty more like instances of me being patient with the deciding problems, I guess.
Mm. Yeah, but that's a really, really good example of observer versus decider. I feel the same way as you. Like, I can't even relate to that. Like holding a grudge for so long for something that,
Yeah,
probably I didn't even think of it in the first place. And if I did, I
yeah,
just kind of, yeah, let it go.
definitely,
It's interesting. I was also thinking about when you said that you can get annoyed with family members making noise or
definitely, yes.
other things. But what I hear you saying is,
Demon SE.
yeah, you're not really annoyed at the person, because I don't hear like who is the person and what other things is this person doing to annoy you. I'm just
Yeah.
hearing like, oh, the noise, like the SE
Mhm.
that they are doing, that's kind of draining for me as an energy dom, and I
Yeah.
can't take it. I'm in my sleep processing and this is disturbing me. It's more like observer issues, even if it is the people making the noise, but you're not focused on the people.
Yeah, definitely. I am a very sensitive person when it comes to like sensory input.
Mm-hmm.
I am definitely very quick to leave any situation which is very noisy or like when multiple people are talking at once, especially, or when something is touching me repeatedly, or when there's flashing lights, etc.
Yeah.
just the sensory chaos, especially repeated sensory chaos, is something that's very draining for me, and it gets me really upset and angry. And
Mm-hmm.
just last night, actually, I was to a birthday party. I was going to a birthday party, and I was there for like 40 minutes, and then
Mm-hmm.
I had to leave. I
Oh.
had to leave immediately, uh, because I stayed there for 40 minutes enduring the pain of the chaos surrounding me, because I really care about the person that whose birthday party it was.
Mm.
She is like my best friend, of like 7 years or so. And
Mm.
so I went there and I just gave her the present, and then I looked at my phone for 40 minutes while trying to like breathe, like controlling my breathing, just trying to not throw up.
Mm.
And then I had to like say, oh my gosh, I have to leave because I'm a little bit sick. And then she was like, okay, fine. And then I left. And I'm really grateful that like uh, pretty much all of my friends are that I hang out with are okay with like my sensory issues. Like they are
Mm.
understanding of the fact that I
Oh,
need a
that's
break
good.
often, and I can't really endure the same amount of stuff that a lot of other people can when it comes to like sensory stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Wow, that's good.
and then I ended up finding two other friends that I randomly bumped into,
Mm-hmm.
like two friends from school. I ended up seeing them in town when I was going back home. And then I spent like 2 hours in town just hanging out with them.
Ooh.
And but it was a positive experience overall because of the people. So the people kind of fixed my sensory issues again,
Yeah.
as
Again,
they
yeah.
do most of the time.
Mm. Wow, thanks for that. That was another consume story taking us
Yes,
along.
of
A
course.
random you story.
Yes.
Wow. Yeah. It's really good to get to know you. And it's interesting also to see and talk to you after having talked to Farah.
Yeah.
Because every time you talk to the same type, you get to know it a little bit more. Even though, I mean, we are all different people, we are all different persons, but sharing some cognitive functions are interesting, just to be able to compare and contrast those and learn more.
Yeah.
Yeah. So finally, like the last question that I usually ask is, mm, if there is someone out there with your exact same type or a similar type, maybe one who is younger than you, maybe someone who hasn't yet, learned so much about typology. What do you think? What kind of advice would you give them, that you maybe wish that you had gotten, when you were younger?
Yeah. Well, most of the advice that I would give to somebody of my type, I don't really, there's not really much advice that I would give to somebody of my exact type exactly. Like most of the advice that I could think of is usually pretty me exclusive,
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of things that, a lot of problems that I've had aren't really exactly type based. But I guess the main thing that I would say is like try to get involved more, try to like ask people about stuff, try to incorporate people into what you like, and don't get like immediately turned off when somebody is like not immediately into what you're doing. And I guess be a little bit more present, I guess. Um, Try harder to make things more interesting when they don't suit your I
Mm-hmm.
guess. And I've done that, I think, pretty well so far by making little games uh, out of my homework, or like adding people to the homework, or working together with somebody, etc. But yeah, I guess the main point of advice that I could give is just go and do randomly something nice for somebody, like help them with their homework, or ask somebody who looks like they're having trouble, like, hey, do you need some help with this homework? for example, I mentioned homework like at least 5 times within this whole interview. um, but yeah, I guess just do your demons. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, that's such a good advice. I remember when I talked to Dave on the phone, um, the 25th of November, almost 2 years ago now.
Mm.
And we were talking about FI versus FE because
Mhm.
he was typing me over phone. So that's when I learned my type, and
Like
that
practical help versus emotional support is what you're gonna say, right?
um he was actually saying that when you share if you have like FI and say I love the Smurfs and you love the Smurfs, well then we can be friends. He gave that as an
Mm.
example. I I thought of that when you said that being a little bit more open-minded if there is someone who doesn't like the same things as you do.
Yeah, definitely.
That's such a good advice because it doesn't come naturally. Like you have to go that extra mile. You have to make that effort to
Mm.
kind of show interest in something that you are not really interested in. And that's something that comes pretty naturally for the opposite um, function, the FE,
Mhm.
because that's what we do all day. Like we are
Mhm.
interested in other people's interests because we are interested in them, and we know that by learning more about their interests, we will learn more about them, and that's kind
Yeah,
of the purpose of the whole thing.
that's definitely something that I've had to learn manually
Mm,
over time through experience, that I have to lower my standards when it comes to what I have in common with people,
yeah.
because I definitely used to be like, oh, uh, we have uh, like I used to like not even talk to people who were religious because I had like I was pretty strongly into being an atheist for a long time, and I really had this grudge against religion. So I was like, I couldn't even talk to people if I knew they were not atheists. So I
Mm,
kind of
yeah.
avoided those religion related conversations often. But I think
Mm,
I've definitely grown out of that phase now, and I can talk to people no matter who they are, essentially. And well, of course, like if somebody is a horribly blatantly horrible person, I might hesitate more.
yeah,
But
of course.
still, I definitely am more open-minded when it comes to the feely side of we don't have a lot in common, therefore there's actually more to learn in
Yeah,
those areas rather than I don't have anything to gain from you
right.
through our interests, which was my kind of point of view back then. Like we don't have anything in common, therefore I can't really get any interesting stuff out of you, which is now I know totally not true.
Yeah. Yeah, and in terms of OP, you can always learn more about type,
Yeah,
if
of
nothing
course.
else,
Yeah,
because at least that's
exactly.
in your box and everyone
Yes,
has a type. So now you
definitely.
can basically interact with anyone and find it
Yes.
interesting from that
Yeah,
perspective.
definitely. That's exactly kind of what I talked about a lot in like the OP groups on Discord and Facebook, is
Mm,
that OP has helped me like people more literally.
yeah.
Like when somebody is being really loud and pushy and obnoxious and tone deaf and like doesn't listen to me as I'm talking and stuff, I'm not thinking like, oh, this person's really annoying, or like, oh, they're so rude or something like that. I'm
Mm,
more marveling at their type. Like, oh, this person is double masculine, TESC, play,
yeah.
blast, sleep, consume, which is exactly my opposite, which makes them really interesting to me. So
Yeah.
that's,
Wow, that's so cool. And of course, I need to learn the same things in terms of TI versus TE, like
yeah.
opening up more to that random kind of logic that to me as an OI, especially like having NITI sleep high is, you're constantly building on that same logic and those same patterns. And then someone comes from the outside with random logics that doesn't really fit into the structure. It's more kind of an annoying feeling when you experience it, but I just need to be more open and, maybe I
Yeah.
can learn from this. Maybe that can give me something in the long run.
Hmm.
So that's what you're doing with FI and FE.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, it's been really cool talking to you and
Yeah.
getting to know you. Thank you
Oh
for
my gosh.
coming on.
Of course. Thank you for telling me that it's a possibility that I can do an interview. That's
Of course.
awesome.
Yeah, and now I'm opening up for all the quadras, so anyone,
Yeah.
like even a delta or an alpha, can come on.
Even those weirdos can do
Yeah,
interviews
not
now.
just the betas and the gammas with NI, SC,
Yeah.
but even the NE, SI ones. That
Yeah.
would be cool too. So, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, let's continue off the camera. And thank you, everyone,
Yeah.
for joining us.
Or see ya.